Good morning, Arthur Rafferty, ASNITV. I'd like to speak this morning about war crimes and the involvement of Sinn Féin IRA. Now, anyone murdered by Sinn Féin IRA over the past 40 years would be entitled to claim compensation, and their families also for loss of a loved one. After all, this terrorist group was at war with the powers that be, and also with innocent members of the public. So war crimes come into play. Thousands of innocent men, women and children were murdered by this group called Sinn Féin IRA. These war criminals should be brought before the courts to answer their crimes, no matter about the time limit, as there is no time limit on murder. These Sinn Féin IRA scum keep telling us that they are fighting a war and innocent people were murdered by them. So innocent people are entitled to claim compensation from them. Families of the murdered ones would also be entitled to claim for loss of life of a loved one who had nothing to do with their so-called war. IRA or Sinn Féin IRA, they are one and the same. They are guilty of war crimes and genocide. I will be making a list of those innocent people who were murdered by this so-called Sinn Féin IRA group, and I will be handing the list of names into the House of Lords and also Westminster. After all, they are the government who put those murderers into power in Stormont. I will make sure that the people I have spoken to who have had members of their families murdered by these war criminals will feel the full rigours of the law, both here and in Europe. I will be working with these people, and explaining how we can go about getting cases of war crimes and genocide brought against Sinn Féin IRA, and also RUC Special Branch and the FRU, Forces Research Unit, a branch of the British Army who, together with the RUC Special Branch, employed hundreds of Sinn Féin IRA members to work as informers, to set up and murder innocent people, and who were well paid by the British government for their undercover work. Some were also working as MLAs at Stormont, and some are still working there to the present day. Then you get Waldorf and Stadler, those two muppets in America, acting as if all is okay back in Belfast. If those business people in America only knew of the past history of these two so-called politicians, with their smiling faces and shaking hands, I don't think too many would be coming to Belfast. I, for one, would not let those two run a bingo hall, let alone a country. As for the Mayor's site, let the farmers run their shows from it and flatten the rest and use it as a car park, because that is all it is fit for. I would like to speak about Matt Baggett and the Secretary of State. Once again, those two, Baggett and Fillners, have done a complete U-turn by allowing Sinn Féin IRA to have their way, all because Relatives for Justice, a branch of Sinn Féin IRA who wants more of the Republican cases to be heard, rather never mind anybody else. Also, no charges were also brought against Sinn Féin IRA Culture Minister for handing over private papers without the consent of the court. This person should have been arrested and charged for her crime. She handed the private papers over to Relatives for Justice group, who also should have been arrested. But Matt Baggett and Teresa Fillers, the Secretary of State, said they had no case to answer. This Culture Minister is also the same person who tried to stop a police jeep with Jerry Kelly, another member of that police board, who had arrested a rider. Both these two have yet to be charged, and that is about 6 to 7 weeks ago. Also, Matt Baggett done another U-turn by appeasing the policing board members who wanted David Cox of the HCT to go. These Sinn Féin area members of the board, aided and abetted by their friends and relatives for justice, wanted David Cox out because he did not work with them, and Matt Baggett appeased them. I would like to know what hold these people have over our chief constable. I think it's time for him to go, because I thought David Cox was doing a good job in the HAT. He did not bow to any pressure from Sinn Féin IRA or any of the groups. I also think that the policing board should be scrapped. Now, speaking about Edmund Poots, our health minister. Well done, Edmund. Good news for me, as Edmund Poots is planning on taking the same-sex adoption people who won their case to adopt children to the Supreme Court in London. He is appealing the decision that was awarded to them. Now, I myself am taking 7 corrupt doctors to court for corruption, malpractice and wrongful diagnosis of my sickness. I was to take my case here in Belfast, but I have no faith at all in the complete legal system here, so I will be taking my case to London. I have already lodged the papers 5 to 6 weeks ago. The Bar Council, the Attorney General and the Lord Chief Justice here in Belfast have all tried to stop me taking my case to London for fear of what will happen when I win my case over there. But now that Edmund Poots is allowed to take his case to London, that leaves the door wide open for me. So once again, thank you, Edmund. Now, the legal services. I have had dozens of people coming into my advice centres in Belfast complaining about solicitors and lawyers, most cases about relatives who have plural plex, and the time limit these legal people are taking to settle their cases. I know only too well what they are up to, as I have been fighting them for the past 12 years. One woman in particular whose father died in 2007 from plural plex, and she hasn't received any compensation yet, and it is now 2013. She has also had only one letter from her solicitor's firm in all that time. That's one letter in 6 years. I told her these legal firms don't care, as they are claiming legal aid from the time they take your case on, and the longer your cases takes, the more legal aid they get. And by the way, the legal aid is paid by the public purse, so these people are committing fraud. I have reported these firms to the Law Society and the lawyers to the Bar Council, but it was a total waste of my time, as it is an old boys club and they look after each other. Those corrupt people don't care about the public. The public mean nothing in their eyes. Many of the people have also asked me to recommend a legal firm to take their cases on. I tell them it's hard to recommend any firm in Northern Ireland, as I have found many of them to be corrupt. I have a large notice on my wall in my 2 offices saying, in my experience, the legal system in Northern Ireland is corrupt. And I have even came across a corrupt judge. Now, the corrupt BBC. Once again, a BBC reporter named Kevin McGee asked me for my help in speaking about asbestosis for a BBC show. I gave him advice about many Belfast doctors who worked with the deadly cargo without any protection at all. His short, brief show had forgotten to mention that doctors were the first to handle the deadly cargo of asbestos. Only for dockers, ships would not have been made in Belfast, as asbestos was a gold dust that ships needed for insulation of all pipes and doors. Now, I myself unloaded asbestos for over 28 years, so the shipyard could build ships. Yet the corrupt BBC reporter never gave dockers any praise for all their hard work. Hundreds of dockers have died because of that deadly cargo, and not only dockers but also dockers' wives and members of their families who had to live with that deadly dust. And they are never mentioned on the news. I, like many other dockers, are known as the forgotten ones. Speaking about our Deputy First Minister, McGuinness. Listening to McGuinness saying he was not happy that an appeal was turned down in the Omagh bombing. This coming from a terrorist whose organisation bombed the heart out of Belfast, killing men, women and children in a no-warning bomb in Smithfield bus station, not counting the hundreds of innocent men, women and children who were murdered by his group, and most were unarmed. I think this person is suffering from dementia. Someone in his party should point him towards a hospital. Good morning, and thank you for listening to ASNI. Anyone who has a story to tell and wishes me to air it can call me on my mobile 07715 921137, or I can send a reporter out to get your story. And remember, I will tell your story as you tell me. Nothing will be cut out. Watch more of my stories on YouTube, arthurrafferty.com, ASNI Asbestos Support ni.co.uk, YouTube Arthur Rafferty Docker, and thank you for watching me, ASNI TV. See you soon. Good morning.